in two questions. What is next for you? What's next for you? What are the days ahead like for you? And the second question is, what is God doing about your next? I want to give you a list of things that we worry about. Here's my challenge. Out of the list I read to you, pick 5 that apply to you. Now, if there's more than 5, we have a Genesis Center up on the hill, but let's get started on this, right? So we have folks here that are worried about whether Wisconsin or Duke will win the NCAA men's basketball championship because, of course, you picked them both. Yeah, right. We worry about the nuclear deal with Iran. We worry about the Religious Freedoms Restoration Act. We worry about health care. We worry about the slaughter on the university campus in Kenya. We worry about ISIS. We worry about Yemen. We worry about China and Russia, the EU, Indonesia. We worry about the influences that are driving various issues in Africa. We worry about immigration, minimum wage, upcoming elections. We worry about our aging parents. We worry about our own finances and retirement. We worry about our children. We worry about some of the choices our family members are making. We worry about where they'll go to college, what college they'll get into, and how somebody's going to pay for it. We worry what will happen while they're away. We worry whether they'll get a job when they graduate. We worry about who our sons and daughters will date and who they'll marry. We worry about health. We worry about the diagnosis we get back from our own medical tests. We worry about the care of our disabled family members. We worry if our loved ones will live through the disease they're fighting. And we worry about America, about morals, about drug and alcohol abuse. We worry about maintaining our own sobriety. We worry about Islam. We worry about the future of the Christian faith. We worry about the impact of social media on our children and society. We worry about racism, bigotry, tolerance, and intolerance. We worry about sin. We worry about our own spiritual lives. And you're worrying if I'm ever going to stop talking about what we're worrying about. How many of you got 5 out of that list at least? Yeah. This week, some of us spent times at a funeral. Some of us spent times in hospital rooms. For some, the patients were younger than it seemed right for them to even be in that situation. Had phone calls from parents worried about what's going on with their children. Facebook messages asking me to pray for aging parents. These are our worries. You probably have a few more for your list. But I want you to think about this with me for a few moments. These logos on the screen. One of them is for career counseling, or coaching. One of them is a cancer support website. One of them is a retail strategy launch logo. All of them asking, what's next? One author noted, what's next? From the child at Disney World to the parent at the hospital waiting for their child's diagnosis, this question has a strange breadth of meaning. We're starting a series today. I want you to be a part of it. I'm glad you're here today. I want you to come back for the next 3 weeks. I want you to change your schedule and come back for the next 3 weeks as we talk about what's next for you and what God is doing about it. In Scripture, surrounding the events of Easter, we see an interesting progression in the next days of Jesus. At a rare moment where it looks like the Pharisees cared about his livelihood, it says in Luke 13:31, At that time, some Pharisees came to Jesus and said to him, "Leave this place and go somewhere else. Herod wants to kill you." And Jesus replied, "Go tell that fox, I will keep driving out demons and healing people today and tomorrow. And on the third day, I will reach my goal. In any case, I must press on today and tomorrow." Say it with me. "And the next day. For surely no prophet can die outside of Jerusalem." See, when Jesus thought about the next days, he had a third day in mind. He had a day that would become the infamous forever next day. The day that represented that whatever any other day looks like, there's a next one that looks like this. I want us to see the contrast between him and his persecutors. There was a day called Friday, a day on which Jesus died. And it says in John 19, when he had received the drink, Jesus said, "It is finished." And with that, he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. But you see, now it was the day of preparation, and the next day was to be a special Sabbath. And because the Jewish leaders didn't want the bodies on the crosses during the Sabbath, they asked Pilate to have the legs broken and their bodies taken down. You see, there was a next day for the Pharisees. And they needed things cleaned up. We had time to kill a man that we don't know is innocent. We don't have time to reflect on it as to whether or not we did the right thing. But we got a big celebration we've been planning for quite a while. We've been cooking and gathering and everything's swept in our... everything's ready for the day after we killed this man called Jesus. That's what we're thinking about on Friday. It's fascinating how we can become so focused on the day we're in that we lose the promise and the power of the next day. This continues in John chapter 19, verse 41. At the place where Jesus was crucified, there was a garden. And in the garden, a new tomb in which no one had ever been laid. So, because it was the Jewish day of preparation, and since the tomb was nearby, they laid Jesus there. You see, Friday, we had big plans. Saturday, we had big plans. And notice verse chapter 27 of Matthew. So verse 62, the next day, the one after preparation day, the chief priests and the Pharisees went to Pilate. They said, "Sir, we remember while he was still alive," talking about Jesus, "that deceiver said, 'After 3 days I will rise again.' So give an order for the tomb to be made secure until the third day. Otherwise his disciples may come and steal the body, and then they'll tell people he's been raised from the dead. This last deception will be worse than the first." "Take a guard," Pilate answered. "Go and make the tomb as secure as you know how." So they went and they made the tomb secure by putting a seal on the stone and posting a guard. Now this is fascinating. The Roman guard averaged 16 people. Research says that it took 20 grown men to move the stone. So I think they've doubled up. I don't think there's any worry that the next day is going to go the way that Jesus said it would go, but Sunday did come. Matthew chapter 28, it says after the Sabbath, that would be what day? Saturday. After the Sabbath, at the dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. Apparently, one angel can do what 20 men struggle to do. His appearance was like lightning, his clothes white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. So the live guards that were watching the dead man become like dead men as the dead man comes to life. The angel said to the women, "Oh, don't be afraid." In the original language, it's kind of a word that means don't have a heart attack. For I know who you're looking for. You're looking for Jesus who was crucified. Well, he's not here. He's risen. Say it out loud. Yeah, he did say this. He said something about next. But I think in the midst of your Friday, in the midst of your plans for Saturday, you couldn't quite get over the hump to believe in the next day. So come and see the place, see where he lay, because he's not here, he's risen. Well, then go quickly, tell his disciples, he's risen from the dead and is going ahead of you. Now, I bolded that because apparently there's another next day. The resurrection must not be the last of the next. In fact, I think the resurrection is like a domino that puts in motion every next after. He's going to go ahead of you into Galilee. There you'll see him. Now I have told you. So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid, yet filled with joy. And they ran to tell his disciples. Now I'm going to ask you to do something with me. We're going to look at this in a little more detail in Mark chapter 16. And I want you to try to see yourself in the text. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome bought spices so that they might go anoint, rub it on the body of Jesus in the Jewish practice. So very early on the first day of the week in the original language, the sun is just creeping up over the horizon. Just after sunrise, they were on their way to the tomb. And then they asked each other, who will roll away the stone from the entrance of the tomb? Who's going to do that? But when they looked up, they saw. Now, because I've had time to meditate on this passage, I'm asking you to see something that I didn't see initially. They looked up. You see, it's our tendency on the Friday and Saturday of our life to look down, to get stuck on the downward look. The health issues, the child issues, the parent issues, the world issues, the local issues, the political issues, the religious issues, the issues that cause us fear, the things people know about and the things they don't. We get a tendency to look down. Have you ever been caught in the downward look? Have you been stuck in the downward look? You see, they're looking downward. That's why they start out and forgot, oh goodness, when we get there, who's going to move the stone? When they finally look up, they see. Underline that. When you look up, you will see something you can't see when you're looking down. And they saw that the stone, which was very large, it's kind of classic in the original language, they say it twice. It's mega sphroda. It's really, really giant, big. It'd take 20 men to move that stone. But the stone has been rolled away. Not just rolled. It's a compound word. They got it out of the way. Whatever was in the way is out of the way. The stone that was blocking the next has now been moved. And as they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. Don't be alarmed. I always find it interesting that angels show up, scare us to death, and then tell us not to be scared. You're looking for Jesus the Nazarene who was crucified. He is risen. He's not here. See the place where they laid him. But go tell his disciples and Peter, he is, now you say it again, going ahead of you into Galilee. And there you will see him just as he told you. Now I'm going to put two scriptures on the screen. I want you to write them down and read them on your own. Luke 24, 6 through 12. John 20, 8 through 9, because as the disciples keep showing up at this open tomb, they are stumbling and struggling to believe that what Jesus said would happen really happened. These ladies give to me a gift. 3 steps that they took. Number 1, they stepped out by faith. They started walking before they figured out how to move the stone. Number two, God removed their barriers as they moved forward. They're moving, so is God. Number three, their next step was revealed when they'd already gone beyond their original barriers. Now, this is a big issue. Many of us were raised in a planning culture, a linear culture, an if-then structure, to where we believe that if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C every time. But you see, resurrection doesn't really fit into that little equation, does it? Because if crucifixion equals death, and burial means you've died, then there is no place for resurrection in that equation unless God goes before you. So see, they're doing something about it, and God is doing something about it. Brothers and sisters, I want you to concern yourself with an issue. Worry is like the stone. It makes us believe that what God is doing behind the stone is insufficient to move it. Whether it be big or small. God can't do this, so I have to worry about it. Have you ever wondered why God did what he did surrounding the resurrection? You know, letting them come to the tomb, and then moving the rock, and then commissioning them. The whole, there's too big of a barrier, and suddenly there isn't, and now there's more. Look with me at Acts chapter 1. This is after Jesus' resurrection. It's before he ascends back to heaven. These are the next days that we were talking about. They gathered around Jesus and they asked him, Lord, are you at this time going to restore the kingdom of it to Israel? And I leave that on the screen. This may be new to you. It may be old to you. But the context of this is these Jewish believers grew up with this concern. Are we ever going to have our kingdom restored? For centuries, they had been ruled. Assyrians, Babylonians, Greeks, or Persians, Greeks, Romans. They're ruled by the Romans right now. Will there ever be a time? You see, they believe if we could just get this done, then everything would be good. How many of you have got stuck on a worry that you said, God, I'll be leaving you if? You answer this prayer this way, I'm yours. You follow through with this, I'll trust you. If you'll heal my loved one, if you'll bring my child back, if you'll help my parents reunite, if you'll fix the pending relational problems with my children's marriage, if you'll do all of that, I will love you more, trust you more, believe in you more. I'll do all those things. But I'm kind of waiting for you to move a rock. So what we're saying, God, is I'm stuck on this one. Do something about this the way I want it done, and then we can move forward. Jesus says, well, it's not actually for you to know the times or the dates the Father set by his own authority. I can't tell you the number of times that I've watched faithful Christians face death, not just illness, death, with not only an assurance of where they're going, but a trust that God is in charge. That God knows the number of days of our life, and there is no unfaithfulness in us slipping from this life into the eternal glory he's promised, whether it be today, tomorrow, or 20 years from now. I've watched faithful Christians do this for the last 35 years that I've been a follower of Jesus. And every time I have a twinge inside myself wondering, could I do that? Not just believe I'll go to heaven, but go to heaven happy. Instead of going mad or frustrated or angry. You see, what God does is he doesn't just deliver me forever, he delivers me right now. The moving of the stone isn't so that I'll be miserable here but happy someday. It's that I can have the peace of understanding, the peace beyond understanding right now. Jesus said, let me tell you something. It's not for you the times or the dates or the things you're worried about, but let me tell you what's going to happen. There's a next for you. You will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses in all Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. What does he say? You and I are on a mission together. We're going to go into the world that is riddled with doubt, anxiety, and strife. And we're going to replace it with faith, hope, and love. We're going to go into a world that is immersed in death and the longing to cause it. And in its place, we will put life. We have a great commission from God, but it's not some impending judgment that we grudgingly fulfill. Our great commission is an opportunity to bring life to a world struggling with death. It's like bringing clean water to a village, like bringing a vaccine where there's been a deadly virus. It's like bringing peace where there's been war. Our Great Commission isn't going to make the world worry more, but less. Many of you have enjoyed and benefited from TED Talks, these short but engaging, powerful speeches. The third most watched of all time is by Simon Sinek. And he made this comment: leadership is not about the next election, it's about the next generation. We're not looking at this world just in what's in front of us in the next few days or the next few months or the next few years. We're looking at what we will do with God well beyond our own days. There will be hard days. Paul writes, we don't want you to be uninformed, brothers and sisters, about the troubles we experienced in the province of Asia. We were under great pressure far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired of life itself. Indeed, we felt we had received the sentence of death. But there will be great days. But this happened that we might not rely on ourselves, but on God who raised or raises the dead. He has delivered us from such a deadly peril, and, say it with me, He will deliver us again. On Him we have set our hope, that He will continue to deliver us as you help us by your prayers. C.S. Lewis noted, if you read history, you will find that the Christians who did the most for the present world were precisely those who thought the most of the next. It is since Christians have largely ceased to think of the other world that they have become so ineffective in this. While I was visiting my mom's farm in Grand Junction area, Colorado, I had the opportunity to go to the church there and conduct a men's retreat. My mom and dad drove to that church 54 miles each direction for many years through a 2-lane canyon road. I was blessed at this men's retreat to have several men come to me and tell me what my dad meant to them, including personal, touching stories. One of them stands out to me. A man from the church shared about a meeting that they were having. Several members of the church were sharing their points of view, their concerns and opinions. Great worry and anxiety was in the room like a fog. This went on for quite some time, and then the man reported to me. Then deep into this lengthy discussion, your dad raised his hand and simply said, "Stop." Everyone looked toward him, admittedly with some confusion. So he said it a second time, "Stop." And when he had all their attention, he asked them this question: where is God in this conversation? Where is God in your words? Where is God in our reasoning? The man's eyes glistened with tears as he recalled this event. It had clearly had a lasting impact. My dad wasn't criticizing them for their concerns, nor was he encouraging them to quote more scripture. His question wasn't about their words, it was about their faith. They were living as if they had to do the work of God, rather than to trust in the work of God. I believe that my generation, mine, and the ones that precede me, have passed on more anxiety than faith, more judgment than grace, more premise than promise, more humanism than hope, more humanity than deity. This is no gift to the next generation. We've spent too much time trying to prove the death, burial, and resurrection. What we needed to be doing was demonstrating the power that the death, burial, and resurrection has had on transforming our lives. The world needs to see that we've been changed. They found a stone that couldn't be moved, rolled completely away. God longs to do that in your life. If there is one gift we owe to the next generation, is that we would live by the faith we proclaim, that God still raises the dead. I believe he'll do that for you. Some of you, like Victoria, want to give your lives to Christ. Some of you want to give your lives back to Christ. Our shepherds will be down front. They'll be up in the balcony. They long to pray with you, share with you, help you take a step forward, help you with your next. We invite you to come and share your desires, your hurts, and your needs as we stand and sing together.
Salvation